Hello, and welcome to the show. This is it. This is the Hobnobbin with Slim Man podcast, where we have conversations with creative people on both sides of the show biz coitin'. Oh yeah, I am your host, the Slim Man, the slimmest of all men, Slim Papa, showstopper. And today I'm going to have a chat with sax man Greg Vail, who is going to tell us some stories about the million-selling CDs he did for Time Life. He's going to talk about his love for growing tomatoes and also his time with guitarist Peter White. But before we dig in deep, let me tell you about what's been going on here at the Slim Shack in Palm Springs, California. Well, actually, it's been kind of slow here at Slim's Shady Trailer Park. Not many gigs coming up. And it happens sometimes. But anyway, this is funny. I did get an offer a couple of days ago to play the Meatball Festival in Palm Springs next Sunday. Seriously. It's a benefit, a children's benefit, and I'm not sure what exactly the deal is, but they asked me to play for free to sing some songs from the Slim Man Young at Heart CD, and it's a kid-friendly show with clowns and meatball contests, and I'm going to do it. Clowns, meatballs, Slim Man, all under one tent. Anyway, Slim Man is going to play the Meatball Festival. That's the exciting news here at Slim's Shady Trailer Park. A couple of days ago, I spoke with my friend Henry. He's been in the music biz for a long time, and the stories he tells are amazing. I haven't asked Henry yet for permission to use his last name or any of the other names, but anyway, Henry is a guy that I have to get on this podcast. He's broken some really big name singers, and he's also placed some smash hit songs. He's a publisher, he's a manager, he's a raconteur, and he's bold and brash and rough and tough, and I tell you, he's got some great stories. For instance, he was telling me about when he was trying to break this girl singer. She had a new record coming out on a major label. She was sleeping with the president of the company, big, huge company. She was mad at the guy, so she refused to do the radio station promotion tour, and that's where you go to radio stations and do interviews and pose for photos and stuff. Well, Henry gets this girl on the phone and says, if you don't meet me in the lobby of the hotel tomorrow morning, you will never get any airplay, ever, never, anywhere. Well, Henry flew out to the West Coast, met the girl singer, and she did the promo tour, and she became huge. You'd know her if I named her. Anyway, Henry told me the story about how they used to break records back in the day. There were just a couple of guys who controlled almost all the radio stations. They were what they used to call independent radio promoters. Now, these guys, they were all guys, a lot of them Italian. They determined what got on the air. Now, I'm not saying there was anything illegal or immoral going on, but it definitely wasn't Sesame Street, that's for sure. Well, anyway, that's how you got airplay back in the day. You called these mob guys, and they set it all up. Anyway, I got to get Henry on this show. His birthday's tomorrow. I might drive down and surprise him. What else? I had lunch with a guy named Charles Lago. He's a film producer, and his company is putting out the ebook version of the Slim Man Cooks Cookbook. The company also does film production, artist management, and publishing. So I met with Charles for lunch. You know, since I've been out here on the West Coast, I've been doing a lot of lunches. I never did that back east. I don't know why, but I started doing it out here. I guess I've seen it in so many movies and TV shows, you know, the Hollywood let's do lunch kind of thing. Anyway, I got to tell you, I kind of like it. So I had lunch with Charles, and I asked him if we could release the Slim Man Cooks ebook the same day that we release the Young at Heart CD, which is October 20th. So that's what we're gonna do, Slim people. Mark it on your calendar. October 20th, the ebook comes out, and the Young at Heart CD comes out on iTunes. Anyway, Charles told me about a movie he's trying to get done. Now, I don't want to give too much of it away, but Charles found a script he liked. and he went up to Northern California to shoot a sizzle reel. What's a sizzle reel? Well, Charles explained it to me. He showed me a 3-minute video clip that he had on his phone. It was a scene where a guy robs a bank. It was really well done. Well, then Charles takes this sizzle reel. He actually had 4 of them, 4 little sizzle reels, 3-minute video clips, and he takes them and he shows them to potential investors to try and rustle up some money for the full-length feature film. Well, for the sizzle reel, they do not use name actors. They use no-name actors because big-name actors don't do sizzle reels. And when Charles told me the names of the 2 actors, the 2 big-name actors who were attached to this movie, wow, you know who they are. Anyway, when they say an actor is attached to a movie, that means they've agreed to terms, and all they need is the money, the do-re-mi. So Charles had these sizzle reels, and he had the big-name A-list Hollywood movie stars attached, and he was, seriously, Slim people, he was flying off to an exotic island to ask someone for the funding. One person who could fund the whole project with 1 check. Seriously. I mean, this showbiz stuff, it ain't for the weak of heart. No. Takes a lot of balls to ask for that much money, and it was quite a sum of dough. All right, speaking of balls, I only cooked once this week, and I made Slim's Manly Balls of Salmon. Now, I hate to admit this, but I'm getting a little sick of salmon. I mean, it's really plentiful out here on the West Coast. It's not expensive at all. It's fresh and it's wild, and all the women folk, that's what they love to eat, salmon. So what's the problem? Well, the problem is, what's a man to do with leftover salmon? Well, you make salmon balls. They're manly. They make a great appetizer. You can put a bunch of them on a plate and call them an entree, or you can use them when you are doing your juggling routine. But most important, they're really, really good. They were so nice. I'm going to tell you how to do it. I took 2 cups of leftover salmon fillet, crumbled. I removed any skin and bones. Then I took 1.5 cups of leftover roasted potatoes. I took 2 eggs. I took 1/2 cup of panko breadcrumbs and 2 tablespoons of chopped parsley, and I put them all in a big bowl. Then I took a small saute pan. I put a tablespoon of olive oil in there. Then I added 2 tablespoons of minced shallot and 2 tablespoons of chopped red bell pepper, and I let it cook over medium-high heat for a couple of minutes, and then I added it in with the salmon and the potatoes and the egg and the breadcrumbs. All right, then I mixed them up. I make them up. Dig your mitts in and just mix it up until it feels right. You don't want it too smooth, and you don't want it too chunky. Anyway, add a little salt and pepper. I used some coarse kosher salt and some fresh cracked black pepper and mix them up. All right, now let's take some of this delectable mixture about the size of a golf ball and put it in your palm and roll it into a ball. And then squeeze your balls gently. There are little pockets of air in there, and by gently squeezing your balls, they'll be tighter and they won't fall apart when you cook them. So squeeze your salmon ball in one palm and then toss it into the other palm, give it a gentle squeeze, and then toss it back in the other palm and give it a squeeze. Do this a couple of times. You'll feel like a real Italian. All right, so we're going to do this with all of our salmon mixture. I rolled about 18 salmon balls. Now, let's get a large saute pan, put it over medium-high heat. We're going to put 4 tablespoons of olive oil in there. We're going to get a large plate. We're going to put some flour in it and spread it around. We're going to take a salmon ball. We're going to gently roll our balls in the flour and shake off the excess. And we're going to do this with all of our balls. And then we're going to saute them immediately, because if you leave your balls sitting around, they'll get soggy, and nobody likes soggy balls. Put the salmon balls in the olive oil. Cook until golden for about 2 or 3 minutes, then turn them over. Cook them on the other side until golden, about 2 or 3 minutes. Remove to a platter that's been lined with a couple layers of paper towels, and that's it. I made a little mustard mayo garlic sauce, and it's really delish. I put both recipes up on the slimmancooks.com website, free for all slim people. Slim's manly balls of salmon and his mayo mustard garlic sauce. All right, let's dig deep into my chat with Greg Vail. Greg Vail plays sax. He plays with the Slim Man Band out here in California, and he also plays with a band called East Basil, and he loves growing tomatoes. Yeah, he does. Now, at the end of my conversation with Greg Vail, I'm going to play you a song. It's a song I wrote for a band called Bona Fide, and I'm thinking that Greg Vail would just nail this tune on the saxophone. It's all coming up right here on Hobnobbin with Slim Man and Greg Vail. Have you recovered from the depression that set in after you trimmed your tomato plants for the season?
No, I have not yet, because there's still some tomato plant out there. It's not all the way, they're not gone, but when I noticed my wife had cut them, because the plumeria tree is blooming, and she cut them out of the plumeria tree, which means she cut back about a third of my tomato plant. And even though we had agreed, it still is like, yeah, it's a little frustrating and a little depressing, because I haven't mourned the death of my tomato plants yet.
Now, those tomato plants, they meant a lot to you. I know, because you talked about them for a long time. You talked about the tomato plants, your harvest, about canning tomatoes and jarring tomatoes and making relishes and all that kind of stuff. And you were talking about some kind of weird tomato worm. And those tomatoes were kind of like a little obsession with you there, Greg Vail.
It's true, but what are you going to do? I mean, you get out every morning and you water it and you prune it. I mean, you're spending time, you're like contributing to its existence, and then it starts to give you gifts, amazing gifts. And then you start sharing these gifts with others, and other people are totally amazed by the gifts that you're sharing. The whole process is amazing. It really is.
Have you thought about the deeper meaning of these tomatoes and philosophically?
I think I have been the whole time. That's why I'm so emotionally attached to my tomato plant.
You know, there is something really wonderful about growing something and watching it grow and bringing forth fruit and stuff. My dad used to grow basil plants up in upstate New York, and he was not obsessed with it, but he had some like little rodents that were eating them, so he built these raised beds with railroad ties, and then they still got to him, and he made a little chicken wire fence around him, and yeah, he was really excited about his basil plants, and then he started growing asparagus. It is kind of exciting, isn't it?
Dude, I think it's awesome. I was never a grower, and now I'm a grower, and I plan on growing for the rest of my life. I immediately became one.
So you're California born and raised?
And bred and spoiled rotten. We moved to Huntington in 4th grade. I call Huntington home because it's a way cooler place.
How did you get into music? Did you go to school one day and they said, here are a whole bunch of instruments. Which one do you want to play, little Greg?
Well, I kind of had it in my family. My grandfather was a saxophone player. He was like one of the early guys who was a symphony guy, but he started playing the saxophone because he just thought it was cool. And he gave me a sax. I think I had my first sax when I was like 5 or 6 years old. And I just, I thought it was cool, but I didn't really do anything with it. But when I got into junior high, my grandfather passed away in 76. And I got into junior high and I was like, okay, I think I want to play the saxophone now because I wasn't doing so good in sports and I was not getting anywhere with the ladies. And I started playing saxophone.
And magically, everything started falling into place. The babes started hanging around young Greg Vail because he was tooting on the saxophone. Was that the way it went down? All of a sudden, the groupies are lining up.
Well, no, not groupies, but I can tell you that, I mean, you work really hard at something. You start being good, you start getting the attention of your peers.
What kind of music were you playing it, and how were you playing it? In a private band, in the school band? How were you doing it?
We had like band, which was like a wind band, and we also had a jazz band. So I was trying to get into the jazz band. I didn't get into the jazz band, I think, until 7th grade.
You graduate high school with music intentions?
When I got out of high school, I was really pretty good on these wind instruments, so I thought, let me go to Long Beach State and I'll just try and be a saxophone major.
Long Beach State. And did you get your degree?
Yep, I got a degree in music. I got a piece of paper. It's not worth anything, but I got it.
Do you remember the first time we met?
No, the very first time we met. How can you remember that? I want to know.
No, I remember the first time we kind of played together. That was I think it was in maybe somewhere around Bakersfield, California. We were doing a gig. You came and played the gig. And it was great. And then after the gig, there was some foul up with the hotel rooms, and you and I ended up sleeping together. Remember?
That was the first time?
I think it was the first time that we actually did a gig. Yeah, we didn't actually sleep together. We had to share a hotel room with 2 double beds just to get that cleared up. But It was strange because I remember somebody suggesting you got to play with Greg Vail. You got to have Greg Vail play with you on your West Coast gigs because he's really good. And I remember looking up, I don't know, somebody sent me some photos.
Oh, no.
This hairdo, it was like, I don't know, like Billy Ray Cyrus kind of mullet going on. It was.
Yeah, I like to think of it as just being really amazing, long, cool hair.
I saw these pictures of you, and I was like, hey, man, I hope this guy plays really well because he's got some wild kicking hair. And then I noticed that I had seen you before on some late night infomercial for Time Life Records. When did you do those records for Time Life? What was it, like Sax by Candlelight or something like that?
Yep, you got it.
Was that the name of it, right? Sax by Candlelight?
Yeah, Sax by Candlelight. It came out as Sax by Moonlight also, and
that must have sold a couple of records because I saw a lot of those commercials with you on them, and you must have sold a lot of records. What year was it? How did it get started?
I'm thinking it was about 90. It was about the same time that I came out as a solo artist. My solo first CD came out in 95. And I believe that the Time Life stuff, we were working on it about the same time, and it came out maybe early 96.
Yeah, because we started working together like 96, 97, probably. It's one of the first gigs that we did, so it was probably in 96. How did Time Life get a hold of you, and what was the process of that whole thing? Because I really do remember seeing you on those late night commercials, those infomercials with those Sax by Candlelight and Moonlight and Firelight. And
it was a manager. It was my record label at the time. He was also a big Muzak provider, and so he provided music for elevators. And Time Life, their music, a lot of it's kind of elevator-ish, and they went to him and said, hey, we have this idea of doing a love song series, like 40 songs, initially, and what sax player, do you have a sax player that we could maybe use? We'd like to have you produce it with our producers.
What songs were you doing? Were you doing original material? Were you doing covers of other songs?
No. It was almost all love songs.
Songs that were previously written that people would recognize.
Yes, yes.
It was all basically love songs played instrumentally on saxophone. They contacted the guy that created all the music for Muzak and asked him to find a sax player, and all of a sudden you're it. I mean, did it change your life? Was there a windfall? Was there a ton of dough involved? Were there concert tours coming up? Time Life Sax by Candlelight, featuring Greg Vail.
No
concert tours.
No, it didn't. The name notoriety for it was a very small thing, and actually the way it progressed was kind of messy because they gave accounting for that first test market. We did a little test market in Avon catalogs, and we sold over 100,000 units in a couple of weeks, and we sold out really quickly, and it's like, oh my gosh, this is going to be huge. And that was the last real accounting I received from Time Life.
They're selling hundreds of thousands of CDs with your name on it, and all of a sudden you can't get an accounting for how much they owe you.
Yeah, or that they owe me anything at all.
Really?
I mean, it was very frustrating because basically, when it's all said and done, it sold in the millions.
Did they ever pay you any money? Did you? I mean, what happened? Surely there was something they owed you.
Yeah. They did end up paying me some money, but to get paid, I had to kind of go crazy. I had to kind of. Basically, what I did is I studied an ancient book, translated into English now, but ancient Chinese book called The Art of War.
The Art of War,
and
Sun Tzu.
Yeah,
I've read it.
Yep, I studied this book. And I just really studied it with the concept of how does a little nobody take on this giant corporate thing. And so it ended up that we had a big meeting, and it was all on the phone. And when it was all said and done, they ended up having to pay me some money. And of course, everybody took chunks. I mean, I had an attorney by this point, and he's taking a chunk. The record label, because he administered the deals, to chunking right off the top. And so I mean, there's by the time it trickled down to me, I ended up seeing, I don't know, maybe 70,000, something like that.
Wow, 70 grand after all that, and millions of CDs. What was your next move? You take down Goliath for 75 grand, and then what do you do? I mean, were you disheartened? Did you decide to start a landscaping company and start mowing people's lawns? What effect did it have on you?
It didn't change anything. What it did is it gave me a little bit of financial resource to replace some instruments I'd lost during a nasty divorce. I was able to get my wind arsenal back where it needed to be, but then most of the money went right into new CDs.
You basically started your own record company and released your own CDs. Is that the way it worked?
That's exactly what happened.
How did you start playing with all the smooth jazz superstars like Peter White and all those guys?
And when I did my solo CD, I had the opportunity to do some promo for it. And the promo for it included doing a Christmas tour, the very first Christmas tour that Art Good did. And it was just up and down the coast, the west coast of the U.S. And on that tour with me was a guitarist, Peter White.
So you're opening up this Christmas show just playing flute, baritone sax, alto, soprano, tenor. Mm-hmm. You're just doing 20 minutes, opening it up. And Peter White's a guitar player, and then he asked you to join his band. Is that how it goes?
He heard me do all of these instruments and play them that well, and he basically responded with, "You have to be in my band. You're so good." And that's exactly how it happened.
How was it working with Peter White? He was on a major label at one point with Columbia, which was what a difference it makes when you're on a major label. It's like being with the New York Yankees as opposed to being with the AA Toledo Mud Hens. What was the difference between going from being kind of in the minor leagues to all of a sudden stepping up with a guy who would kind of hit the major leagues in some kind of way?
Well, the money was a little better, but the main difference was that we actually had we had quantity of work. The quality of it was, I mean, some of them were bigger festivals, but there was just so much more work.
Now, after you got finished with Peter White, what did you do? I mean, how long did you play with him? How long did you play with Peter White?
I just know it was 4 or 5 years I worked with him, and it was great. But there was just a time that I felt like it was done, and I really needed to focus on trying to be a solo guy.
you play with a band called East Bay Soul, and you do a lot of gigs with them. What's up with East Bay Soul?
Well, East Bay was started by a Tower of Power alum, and Greg Adams. And Greg was with Tower, was the trumpet player that did all of the cool arrangements for that horn stuff that made Tower sound like Tower. And he's been doing his project with the 10-piece band as East Bay Soul.
East Bay Soul is a 10-piece horn band, and they also have a vocalist, and they go around and they tour around the United States. How many gigs are they doing a year with a big 10-piece band?
Not as many as we'd like, because it's a big 10-piece band. It's a very expensive thing to put out. I'd say this year we will have, when it's all said and done, maybe 40, 45.
Is it fun for you?
Oh, it's a ball. It's so much fun.
And
because it's really great players, and we're doing like really fun music.
When we were doing the Slim Man Band gig up in Santa Rosa and up in Ripon, California, at that winery, Ripon.
Yeah.
You were talking, as soon as we got in the car to take our first little trek up to Northern California, you were talking about a gig that you had done the night before, and you weren't really happy about it. You'd played for 4 hours. You were subbing for some guy, and you had to sing songs you'd never sung before, and you weren't really tickled pink about the whole thing. And then, 4 or 5 hours later, we're driving and you get a phone call with an offer to play in Japan in 2019 for a 10-week tour that was for a ton of money. That's just kind of the way the music business goes. Yes? No?
Most of what I do is piecemealing it together. I mean, when I was with Peter, there was more of a regular paycheck coming in. For years, I was out at Saddleback Church, and that was like a really easy thing because, there wasn't, all I had to do was just show up and do my thing. Back in the day, we all made a lot of money. I made a lot of money 10 years ago. It's a lot harder to make money today.
Yeah. All right, and now a word from our sponsors. Whenever I need custom t-shirts or aprons or any of that kind of merch, I reach out to Team Sports. They did a great job on the new Bona Fide t-shirts, and they did a great job on the Hobnobbin with Slim Man aprons. So if you need any of that kind of stuff, t-shirts, hats, aprons, mugs, call Tom Huna at Team Sports. That's 760-595-8326, or send him an email, teamsportsindio@gmail.com, or check them out on Facebook at Team Sports. Tom made me some great stuff, and he's going to make you some good stuff too. So if you need merch, reach out to teamsportsindio@gmail.com. Another one of our sponsors here at Hobnobbin with Slim Man is the Foundation for International Aid to Animals, helping animals by helping people care for them. The FIAA is a nonprofit family foundation based right here in the good old United States of America. The FIAA has pioneered sterilization and treatment programs for homeless and sheltered dogs, and it also helps people with limited resources treat and care for their pets. Check out their website, aidtoanimals.org. You can find out about all the great work they're doing for abused and neglected animals all around the world. They give support to wildlife rescue, sanctuaries, and reintroduction programs. They've funded documentaries to bring attention to the problems of homeless and unprotected animals, and it's a real inspiration to see an organization that cares so much, that does so much to help. And if you get inspired, Slim people, there's a donate button. That's aidtoanimals.org. Are you looking to buy or sell a home in the Palm Springs area? It's beautiful out here this time of year. If you want to buy or sell a home, I suggest you reach out to Cindy Gouze. She's with Berkshire Hathaway. They've got a great reputation, and so does Cindy Gouze. She's been living out here in the Palm Springs area for the past 20 years or so. She knows the real estate market like nobody else. She's got years of experience, and she's the go-to gal if you're looking for a condo or a house or a vacation home. As a matter of fact, when the rock stars come to town for the Coachella Festival, they turn to Cindy Gouze to find them a place to rent for a couple of weeks. So, no matter what your real estate needs are, you need to reach out to Cindy Gouze. Give her a call, 760-485-2505, or send her an email at cindy.gouze@outlook.com. That's cindy.gouze, G-U-S as in Sam, E, at outlook.com. All right. Now let's get back to my chat with Greg Vail. I'm hoping I can cheer him up a little. We shall see. I'm concerned about you, Greg Vail. You sound a little depressed. Are you okay?
No,
Are you okay?
I seldom get depressed. I just get riled up. That's what I get.
So, when I first met you, you were dressing like a rock star. I mean, first of all, you had that crazy mullet
I had
hairdo.
I had beautiful long hair. Yes.
No, you had a crazy mullet hairdo.
Well,
Then you had
okay.
the real long ponytail with the beard, and you dressed like in T-shirts and like black jeans and boots, and you wore these necklaces, like a bunch of them with like all kind of satanic symbols on them and bracelets and stuff like that. Right? So that was your look?
Well, there was a look, you know, because, I mean, the boots, like, always had the little metal tip on them, too. You know, there's, like, certain things that kind of became, and it seemed like all sax players in that era all wore shirts with vests, you know. I mean, that was kind of the look, you know. It was like you'd wear, like, some kind of shirt, but you'd have a vest on. You know, so it's like vest and boots and then long hair and maybe facial hair. They were like all sax players had those things. So it's like if you work at at IBM, get all these three-letter things turned around. If you work at IBM, you're going to walk in wearing a gray suit with a light blue tie with a little pinstripe. You know, I mean, it's like they all look the same. And it was kind of the true for musicians at that time, too.
But you had... Your original garb was like of a rock and roller, you know.
Well,
that's what I'm saying.
No, that's what I mean. It was the goal.
It was.
I don't know if I pulled it off.
It was boots, black jeans, T-shirts, lots of necklaces and bracelets, and the ponytail and the scruffy beard. You looked like you would kind of be in the Rolling Stones rather than like the Ripping Tins. Do you know what I mean?
Well,
and then
that would have been fine with me. By the way, I would have loved to have those royalty checks coming in.
And then a couple years ago, we're playing at the KSBR Bash, and you know there's thousands of people there, and you show up. I remember it was this houndstooth jacket, and you had a hat like the New York cabbies used to wear.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden you changed your garb, and I busted your chops all day long about it. You remember?
Yeah. Yes, you did.
I was pretty apologetic about it, though.
Yeah, and you
but
were.
Why?
You did call and apologize, and there was no reason to because we were just having fun.
Because I think I told you looked like, I don't know, an usher at a movie theater.
I don't know. You said a few things that day. And I don't remember what I responded with either.
I know. And then I'm thinking to myself, like maybe your wife gave you those clothes, and like you told her you loved them, and then you felt like obligated to wear them. You know, like those red patent leather shoes you wore last year at the KSBR Bash.
Dude, those are beautiful shoes. Those were beautiful.
Did your wife buy you this stuff, or are you taking this upon yourself?
No,
are you taking this upon yourself to dress like this?
That's late night shopping at Kohl's online. Those shoes were like $28, and I was like, "No way! These are the most beautiful red shoes." So yeah, no, I bought all of that stuff myself. In fact, my wife laughs at some of it. She's like, "This is ridiculous." You know, I mean, the formal jacket with the satin collars, the silk collars that has the black with the little white pin dots. She's like, where are you going to wear that? And it's like, I've worn it like 50 times. You know, it's like I wear it.
You're gonna wear it at Hugh Hefner's pajama party at the Playboy Mansion.
Exactly.
It looked like some of those clothes look like Hugh Hefner would be wearing them at one of his parties.
I'm telling you, they were on discount, but they weren't on discount because they were at the clown store. They were on discount because it just wasn't formal time anymore.
I've kind of learned, like, when a girlfriend gives you something to wear, like a pair of shoes or like a big pilgrim buckles on them or something.
Right.
You just got to immediately kind of say, you know, politely, like, you know, it's really not my style, because if you say you like them, at some point you're going to have to wear them. Do you know what I mean?
Let me tell you, the married guy, what I have is I have the front section of my closet, the very front section, the section I see first. It is the section that are the shirts that she gave me. And so they're the first things I see. And so the first thing I'm looking for is this appropriate to wear one of the shirts that she gave me if we're going to be together, so that I can be seen wearing the shirt she gave me so that she knows that I like it.
The reason why you have them in the front of your closet is because it's the first thing she's going to see when she walks in your room.
But I actually organized it like that because I want to see, first of all the things I could choose from, is there something she gave me I could wear today? You know, because that ends up, you know, makes her happy. She's, I'm glad you like this shirt. You know, it's like, so. But I got to say, for all of that formal wear stuff that I bought for gigs, a lot of it was kind of inspired by that band I was working with, East Bay Soul. You know, that's the big 10-piece band. And that band tends to dress more formal. And, you know, guys like Darryl Walker, you know, I mean, he dresses to the hilt. I mean, he's wearing $1,000 designer shoes every time I see him. You know, I mean, it's like a different kind of gig. And I would show up to these gigs and, you know, I can put a jacket on and a tie on and I could buy a brighter tie, but I just didn't feel like I was fitting in. But what I kind of did, I kind of went the other way, though. I went far the other side of, okay, I'm going to bury Darryl. I want to look cooler than anybody. And so I kind of went too far. But it's kind of came from playing with the East Bay Soul. You know, it's like trying to change that look up to, and then also you get older. You know, the whole point is we get older, it changes like what's appropriate. You know, I mean, you know, when you're young, it's a lot of these young musicians, it's appropriate to be in torn up blue jeans and a T-shirt that has some kind of political something on it, or, you know, and that's like appropriate because that's their young vibe. But when you start to get old, you look like a homeless guy in the same clothes. You know, you don't look cool.
When you're 85 years old and you've got like 2 days stubble on your chin and you've got holes in your pants, it looks like you escaped from like an insane asylum.
Exactly.
It doesn't look really hip.
Exactly.
When you're 20 years old, it does.
Yeah.
You know, when you're 20 years old and you get up and you put on your hoodie and it's got a piece of pizza stuck to the back, that's cool.
Yeah.
But when you're 85,
I
that ain't cool.
Dude, I totally get that. And so I changed all my jewelry, changed everything.
You play in the Slim Man Band. You play saxophone in the Slim Man Band.
I
didn't
love
know you were aware of that.
Playing saxophone with the Slim Man Band. I'm very aware of it. In fact, I'm very aware of the fact you just called me for another performance. I love when my little phone lights up or my email lights up and there's a Slim Man performance, because working with you is always fun. I mean, it really is.
We have fun, don't we? I mean, we really do enjoy ourselves, and that's that, you know, that hour on stage, it kind of almost makes the 23 hours in the van almost worthwhile.
No, it totally actually makes it worthwhile because it's like the pain of childbirth, as they say. You know, it's like it's like how many months and you're already forgetting how painful that incident was, and like totally remembering the event very, very differently than you remembered it right when you were going through it. You know, it's like, there's a lot of hours and there's setup and there's, you know, all these things we got to do to get to the gig and set up and play. But honestly, when it's all said and done, I look back at that and I go, that was really fun. We had fun, man.
It really is a whole lot of fun. It is a lot of, you know, that 23 hours that it takes for that 1 hour on stage. Mm-hmm. It's a lot of work and it's hard to describe to people. But that hour on stage is magic, isn't it?
Oh, it really is, because you get to do the thing you love like more than almost anything else on the planet with people that you totally enjoy being with. And this is like an ideal situation, but this is also your situation, you know, because it's true for you and with your group with guys that you love, being around and playing with, and then you get to do this thing. It's all interactive. It's different every time. I don't play the same solo ever. A couple of your songs, ba da 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 da. I might start off with that one line because it's like on the record and it's really, you actually wrote it out. So I'll start off with that. But then I kind of like ditch the rest of what you wrote, and it's all open. It's all different every single time we play, and it's just so much fun to do. It is. It's hard to figure out which one was better than the last one because this one's like the best one because it's the one we just did.
Yeah, what we played up in Santa Rosa at the Montgomery Village is this beautiful outdoor venue with this beautiful stage and a great sound system and great lights. And I remember it was me, you were playing sax, Dave Hawkes was playing drums, Tatang Katindig was playing keyboards, and Mambo Hernandez was playing percussion. Mm-hmm. And I remember at one point, you and I were kind of standing back, and I'm playing bass, and Tatang was taking a solo. What are you thinking about when you're not playing and you're just holding your sax? I mean, are you looking at girls? Are you thinking about what you're going to have for dinner? Are you thinking about a fight you just had with your wife? What are you thinking about when you're not playing on stage, when somebody else is taking a solo, like during a Slim song, or even during like an East Bay Soul gig and somebody else is in the spotlight? While you're out of the spotlight, what are you thinking? Are you thinking about what's coming up next? What's up?
Well, what I'm thinking about, if I'm thinking about anything, what I'm thinking about is that my job on stage is to focus with my body and my attention what's important on the stage. And so what I'm thinking about, if I'm thinking about anything, would be at that moment I'd be looking at Tatang and interacting with Tatang and like focusing, because it's not about me. It's not about me doing a dance over on the far corner of the stage. Tatang's playing an awesome solo, and I'm trying to help be part of focusing what's going on a stage because I'm aware of those things. But I have to say that I seldom have to think that because for 40 years I've been doing that. So most of the time, like at that moment, I guarantee I wasn't thinking about, okay, try and support Tatang right now as he struggles through the solo. No, I'm actually watching Tatang and digging the fact that he's just like, he's having a ball, and we're like all laughing, we're just having too much fun. It's surprising that we get paid for these things sometimes because we're having that much fun, it's like, but all I'm doing is I'm just enjoying what the heck's going on.
No, what are you thinking about when you're playing? Like, forget about when somebody else is playing a solo. What are you thinking about when you're playing? Like when we do like Europa, that song that you do so well, and everybody always gives you a standing ovation, and like you're going through like the solo in that song. Are you thinking of, like I'm in C minor and I can play these notes? Are you playing melodies in your head? Are you thinking about scales you can play? Like, for instance, when you listen to Louis Armstrong scat sing, mm-hmm. he's singing pretty much the way he plays his trumpet solos. In other words, when he does his trumpet solos, you can kind of tell that he's just playing melodies that pop into his head, and they're popping out of his horn in that way. I don't think he's thinking about, I can go to the E flat or the C or the F or whatever. He's thinking about melodies that are in his head, and he's trying to get them out of his horn. That's the way it appears to me. When you're playing solos and when you're taking an approach to things like that, are you thinking about scales? Are you thinking about, I can hit the E flat here? Or are you just like singing a little melody in your head and it's magically coming out of your horn?
Well, you know what? It's kind of like the last question, because like basically you're never thinking the same thing all the time. But most of the time, if I'm thinking about the sound. And I'm just trying to get the sound to sound as like on a song like Europa. The sound of the saxophone to me is like the thing that is so compelling. It's this like crying out like big old fat sound, and I'm just trying to trying to fill the horn up with air, and then there's some natural things, I know I want to hit the full range of the instrument, because it's a feature and I'm playing for a little while, so I'm trying to, kind of work my way up, like kind of the 2/3, 3/4 mark, I'm playing way up high, and then I got to bring it down to shape going back into the melody. But that kind of, at this point, after having played it 10,000 times, is a pretty natural thing. Most of what I'm focusing on is just listening to the sound and listening to the monitor and like adjusting my microphone on the bell to make sure that if it sounds bright in the monitor that I can tip it up a little bit, it darkens it up. I'm just trying to get the sound to sound as big and full as I can.
When Marc Antoine our guitar playing friend,
Uh-huh.
when he calls you and asks you to play sax on one of his songs, like you played on his most recent CD, Laguna Beach, correct?
Oh, yeah. That was fun.
Now, when he calls you, says, "Hey, Greg, I need a sax part," are you going to his house, into his own studio and recording those things? Are you recording them in your studio and then sending them to him?
We've actually done both on that last record. I went to his house because there's a couple things he wanted to work with me on. Like he had an idea of a line, and maybe it was even recorded on one of the guitar tracks that he wanted me to do on flute, let's say. And he wanted me to come in because he wanted to be able to pull that track out, play it loud for me, and let me learn it, hearing it really loud, and then kind of have me double it and then pull it back into the mix and make sure that that worked. I mean, there's a couple times that we recorded at his house, and then there was one of the songs I kind of played a bunch of stuff on that he said, okay, I'm kind of hearing this, and then I did that stuff all here, recorded it here, and sent it back to him. He's like, okay, this is good, but you didn't do this. I wanted to hear this. I'm like, okay. And so then I sent that to him, and all of that ends up being used as part of the song. So we did it both ways.
Does he tell you which horn to use? In other words, will he say, "I'd like to hear flute on this, I'd like to hear soprano on that, I'd like to hear alto, tenor, bari"? Is he telling you what to play, or are you suggesting? Is it a combination of the two?
It's kind of a combination of the two, but my goal is being like somebody's, like I'm kind of like an extra arm for them because he can't play these instruments, and he generally is going to have some idea because he's been living with this song from the writing and the creation side. He's been living with this for a while. So my go-to for the creative side is always to start with, what do you hear? You know, and most of the time he's got an instrument that he wants to hear. You know, he'll suggest, you know, it's like, you know, I'm hearing tenor kind of like this, you know, but maybe some flute parts over here. And so he's somebody who gives it to me straight up.
So basically what you're doing is he'll say, "I need you to double a guitar part on the flute, and you need to play exactly the same thing that he has written." And then there might be a solo that comes up, and he's like, "Just go ahead and have some fun," that kind of thing.
Each of those roles have a little different place, because if I'm doubling somebody, I'm really trying to play exactly what they played. You know, if I'm just playing the second A and it's the same melody, I have a little bit of freedom where I can, you know, play a little different rhythm, maybe a turn, you know, a scoop on a note, something that's a little more saxophone styled, you know, and not so much doubling a guitar style, which is a
You mean it's more saxist?
Yes. It is more saxist. Yes.
Where are you playing this weekend? You got any gigs?
I'm playing tonight at Phil Tranny's, which is a club in
Phil Tranny's?
Yeah, that's all the only way. Trannis, Trannis. Trannis.
Oh! I thought you meant Phil Tranny's, like was some kind of transgender, transsexual, transvestite kind of club.
I haven't been there yet, so I don't know. But I know I'm playing a jazz show there tonight with a young jazz singer and Dean Gretsch, with a band that Dean put together for a young girl jazz singer and some of his music.
Well, what's Greg Vail doing these days? I don't know, but I saw him at a transvestite, transgender, transsexual club, and I think he's doing something different these days.
Well, you know, you honestly never know. All right.
Well, Greg Vail, thank you so much for this. I appreciate you taking the time. Give my best to that lovely wife of yours. And there you have it. That was my chat with sax man Greg Vail. That was fun. Hustling people. I can't wait to hear about what happened at that place that he played called Phil Tranny's. I'll keep you posted. Anyway, I wrote this song for a band called Bona Fide. It's an instrumental, and I was playing it the other day, and I thought, you know what? Greg Vail could really nail this song. He could wail on it, do like a Gato Barbieri thing on it, like the way he played on Europa. Anyway, I'm going to play it for you right here, right now. It's a song called Tramonto.